Hi friends, welcome to Steel Roots Market. This is Carrie and I'm so glad you're here in the studio with me today. I'm working on a sweet little vintage inspired Halloween project using one of my favorite Decoupage Queen Rice Papers. This one's an A3 sheet that has 4 vintage Halloween images on it, and I also have it in the A4 size in the shop if you like working on smaller projects. Today, I'll walk you through my process, share a few of my favorite Pentart products, and show you how an unexpected little mishap ended up creating a really beautiful finish. So grab a cup of something warm, settle in, and let's create together. I started out with 2 rectangular MDF surfaces that were already prepped from past projects. They had a mix of chalk paint, some crackle, and a little texture. I always like to keep extra surfaces nearby when I'm painting or testing products. If you've got leftover paint, glazes, or even crackle on your table, go ahead and brush it onto something. That way you're never wasting product and you end up with a little library of bases ready for new ideas. For this project, I chose the smaller rectangle. It already had some dark paint and a little crackle finish under it, and I felt it was the perfect size for this Halloween project. I gave it a coat of white chalk paint so that the paper design would pop. Next, I separated the 4 images on my rice paper. You can cut them with scissors, but I love using the water and brush technique. Just wet a small line around the image and gently pull the paper apart. It gives you a soft, feathered edge that blends beautifully when you're ready to decoupage. Once my surface was ready, I used the Pentart Decoupage varnish and glue as my adhesive. I brushed on a thin, even coat, laid down my paper, and smoothed it out gently from the center out. This rice paper is amazing for decoupaging. If you haven't tried it, you definitely should. Then after it dried, I added another layer of the same glue, but this time I used the glitter version, and it adds the prettiest soft glimmer and shimmer to your projects. It's going to be a must-have for the upcoming holiday season. And I do go through and do 2 full coats to make sure that glittery finish caught the light from all the angles. Let it dry really well. You can use a blow dryer or a heat tool, but I prefer a blow dryer on a low warm setting to speed it up. Then once it's dry, I use a sanding block to sand the edges lightly for a clean, smooth border. Now for the fun details. I used the Pentart Chameleon Varnish in Iridescent Gold, and the other one was the Iridescent Brass. A tip is give them a good shake, really give them a good shake, because all that glitter is at the bottom. I decided to take a brush and just lightly go over some different spots, kind of like the moon, and then I do decide to go along the leaves and the little branches, anywhere I just wanted to catch a little bit more shimmer. And I love using these, so I wanted to get them out to play. And then they dry to like this really pretty pearly finish, and it just adds another layer of charm to this piece. I do have these in the shop, and I try to keep them a little inventory of them, so they are in there if you put in Pentart. But if you can't find them, just send me a message and I can help get those for you. I'll make sure to leave a lot of the links to my shop in the description. But I just take a little paintbrush and kind of go all over in little spots just to add that iridescent look to this. This is another item that might be a great idea to grab now to get ready for the holidays. I can see I will be using these a lot, keeping them right up, easy to grab and do some pretty cards and projects for the upcoming holidays. I do give this a good dry also in between. I like to add that drying time between these. So the next is I grabbed one of my older Tim Holtz stencils and used the transparent wax by Pentart. It's a wax paste. And what I did is I just used my finger and I pressed it through the stencil to get that applied in those areas. And I just was kind of focusing around the outer edges of this. What I do after I get that pressed in is I come in with a small brush, and it's an older brush, a little bit of a stiffer bristles to it, and I take the Pentart Art Mica powder, and it's in orange, and I stipple that over the top so that it really gives a bright, beautiful shimmer. Perfect for that Halloween glow, and I really love using it. This was a fun add-on to this. It's just a fun, quick technique, and you use that little bit of wax and the mica powder, and it was just, gives it just a great touch. Then I decided to come in and I mixed a little Pentart pigment fix with the Pentart metal pigment powder, and it's in fire gold. When you mix them together, it turns this into a creamy metallic paint, and it really does. It reminds me like of molten gold. And what I do when I do this process, I take my brush and I'm basically going just around the edge of my project to cover the side, the seams, but I'm letting it build up ever so lightly to create a soldered edge look, like the frame of an antique mirror or a vintage jewelry piece, or like a vintage ornament, or something that has that very old glass with the little bit of metal. It just reminded me of that, and it really made this piece feel aged and special. I love this. Again, this is something that I will be doing a lot more of for some upcoming holiday projects. Okay, as I'm wrapping this up, I am ready for my final layer. Stay tuned because you get to see like a real big mishap happen. So here I'm sharing how it looks. I love the edge of this and how it looks, and it dries really hard, really pretty. And you could call this done if you wanted to, but I decide for my final layer, I decided to use the Pentart pouring glaze. I wanted to take that to the next level, make it like a vintage glass piece ornament. So you can pour this directly on and tilt your piece, or you can brush it out. I like to layer my pieces when I'm using this on something that you can pick up and move, because it does take a very long time to dry. So if you're going to be continuing to work in that space, you're going to want to something that you can easily transfer. So these little deli papers work really well for that. Now, this particular piece, I wasn't going for, my original plan was not to go for a perfectly smooth finish, because I wanted that uneven old mirror texture, like an old window pane. So I you basically just pick this up and tilt it so that the pouring glaze gets to cover your surface, and you don't want a thick, normally you wouldn't want a thick layer of this. You kind of want it thin. So you could come in with a brush. I've seen some people, and I have myself, used a brush to help move this along and get it to cover your piece. And as I was doing this, I was kind of thinking how neat it would be to not even cover the whole thing, almost to make it look, give it an even more spooky Halloween type look. But as you're going to see here, I decide to go ahead and get it as covered as much as possible. And then I decide to leave it to walk away, because often when I'm creating, I am doing other tasks and projects in between, and I walk away with an intent to let it dry. But this is where the happy accident happens. While it was drying, the weirdest thing happened. One of my molds, my IOD molds, slid off the shelf. If any of you had seen my work area, like from other videos or other pictures that I share, one of my molds falls off the shelf above this and landed right in the middle of the glaze, like right on top of the project. And of course, my first thought was, it's ruined. Oh my word, I've never seen this happen before. And here's the finished piece. A soft, glittery vintage Halloween artboard with that aged mirror look. Sometimes the best finishes come from a little mishap like that. I love how it catches the light and tells its own little story, and this one sure does. If you'd like to try this yourself, I have the Decoupage Queen Rice Papers, the Pentart mediums, and some of my favorite surfaces, all in the shop at steelrootsmarket.com. Thank you for spending this creative time with me today, and if you enjoyed this project, please give it a like, a subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you're working on. Until next time, stay rooted in creativity and have a beautiful day.